The Queen is reportedly dismayed by British politicians who she says have an inability to govern.
Here's a summary of the article.
The Queen has privately expressed disappointment in the current crop of British politicians and their inability to govern, a report has claimed. The newspaper, quoting a royal source, said the Queen's frustrations with the political class had only grown since then. The report comes after it emerged that Buckingham Palace and Downing Street are holding urgent talks about how to prevent the Queen from being dragged into the looming constitutional crisis over Brexit. The call was prompted by growing speculation that politicians will try and force the Queen to intervene if Boris Johnson loses a no-confidence vote in September or October. Downing Street sources have said that the Prime Minister would refuse to resign until after Brexit, prompting anti-Brexit MPs including Dominic Grieve, the former Attorney General, to suggest the Queen could be forced to summon him to Buckingham Palace and sack him. In a further extraordinary intervention, John McDonnell, Labour's shadow chancellor, suggested he would respond by sending the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn in a cab to Buckingham Palace to tell the Queen that the party was ready to assume power. The Queen has remained impartial throughout her 67-year reign, and the royal household would be highly resistant to making any political intervention into a highly charged debate.
This post received a score of 25,675, with an upvote ratio of 92%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
She's definitely not wrong.
She's been here for close to a century, she's seen firsthand a lot of what Europe has gone through. Hope she doesn't die under a Boris premiership, that would be awful.
Greater than hope she doesn't die under a Boris premiership. She can't survive another 2.5 months.
Do you really think he will last that long?
I didn't think Trump would last that long. All optimism has been beaten out of me at this point.
It's a lot easier for a PM to shuffle out ahead of schedule than a U.S. president, though.
Trump has made me wish the Queen would take us back. The revolution was a mistake.
You wasted perfectly good tea, deal with it.
Fun fact, most of the tea was well packed in crates and virtually all of it was recovered intact.
Phew. Phew.
Greater than the call was prompted by growing speculation that politicians will try and force the Queen to intervene if Boris Johnson loses a no-confidence vote in September or October. This would be very big if it happens.
I would have thought she'd be more inclined to fire Johnson. Her representative in Australia did so 50 years ago.
The Australian Governor-General has dissolved the Senate and the House of Representatives simultaneously on 7 occasions, in 1914, 1951, 1974, 1975, 1983, 1987, and 2016.
Greater than 1974, 1975, 1983 and 1987. Those all seem real close together. Is there a particular reason for that, i.e. a common cause?
Basically all the dates except 75 were due to the government of the day being unable to pass legislation through the Senate. If the same bill is rejected by the Senate twice, the government can have a special election where all the Senate seats go up for a vote so that if the electorate wills it, they can give the government the Senate majority they need to pass the law. These cases aren't particularly remarkable compared to what happened in 75. In 75, the government was unprecedentedly fired by the Governor-General for a theoretical inability to pass a bill that would allow the government to use their money, similar to recent U.S. government shutdowns. On second thought, the only reason 75 happened is because the Senate portion of the election in 74 failed to be decisive, so I guess there's a link between those two.
75 was really about the different parts of the government not being properly delineated. The PM can write the Queen and get the GG fired, and the GG can dismiss the PM. What happened in 75 was the GG was incredibly threatened by the PM, and the PM was on extremely slippery ice politically. So he hid his intentions and dismissed the government seemingly out of nowhere. It's an ironic situation where the Queen's insistence of staying out of Aussie politics ended with her rep taking the most drastic step available to him.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.